Hello, welcome. I'm so glad to have you. This is If It Was a Book. It's a literary podcast where we take a situation that either happened to my guest, happened to me, or happened to one of you listeners, and we turn it into a book. My qualifications are that I am a librarian, and I am also a book talker and a bookstagrammer, and you may know me from reading 130 books in 130 days, including one of Robyn's books. All the way back in 130 books in 130 days. And then Robyn, my wonderful guest, has written 11 books since 2007. And do you have any other qualifications you'd like to say for why you're so qualified to change this story into a book?
I'm a big fan of books. I'm a big reader. And I probably should have written more books than 11 since 2007.
That's so many, actually.
I think about it sometimes, and then I think about these other very prolific authors who are like, this is my 24th book, and they're all my age. And then I get this complex. So honestly, making one up with you I'm gonna add it to the list and say it's 12. So it'll make me feel more accomplished. So that's my qualification, is I need this for a personal win.
A personal win, that's totally fine. Also, 11 books is so many. It's 11 more than I've ever written, and I think that it's a huge accomplishment. I know that there are people putting out 3-4 books a year, but that's a lot. Couldn't be me.
No, me neither. I mean, I always say I'm going to do 2 books a year, and then I get bogged down in the adjectives and the commas, and no, I can't go any faster. It's not like I write a worse quality book. It just, no book happens.
I have personally 2 of your books, and I love them both. They're very different. This one is a young adult contemporary, and it made me cry, even though it says right on the cover that it's going to have a tragedy. I was not expecting it, and it made me cry. And then we have the Other Merlin book, which is part of the Emery Merlin's trilogy. And I am wondering, and you can decide if we keep this in or not, but in your posts promoting this, you talk a lot about BBC Merlin. Was this originally BBC Merlin fanfiction, or?
Love that you think my answer is going to be so controversial. No, it wasn't. I loved BBC Merlin. It was a big inspiration because I think I watched it when it was on, and I remember being so blown away that Guinevere was Black. Because you just weren't seeing that kind of alternate history painted out in anything at the time. It was so pre-Hamilton and all of that. And I was like, this is so clever. They took this legend, they went back in time to before it existed. They changed up everything that you know about it. But also cowards, where's the queerness?
No, literally.
So yeah, I mean, it was something in my mind. I like to think, I like to list out things that I love and then think about what specifically I love about them, and then try and mash as many things together as possible until it makes a new recipe or a new dish. So no, it was never BBC Merlin fan fiction. I have not written fan fiction ever. I know.
I've never met an author who hasn't written fan fiction.
I know.
That's so exciting, actually. That's so fun. You've only done original.
I wrote, I think, a book when I was 13 that I thought was an original novel that I think was Harry Potter fan fiction.
Of course.
It was a wizard summer camp.
Oh, I also wrote one of those when I was 13.
Yeah, so I'm I think I was adjacent. And I mean, I definitely was in fandoms. I mean, God, I worked with Doctor Who online forever. I just never sat down and wrote out the 11th Doctor and Merlin go on an adventure. But I would think about that just conceptually, but then I would be like, how do I make that into a real original thing?
Well, you have a story you'd like to tell us that we're going to turn into a real original thing.
Okay. I hope so. I hope it doesn't turn out to be Dracula fan fiction.
Oh, but then we will have written a fan fiction, and you can't say you haven't written fan fiction anymore.
That's true. I'll be I'm the author of 12 things, including a Dracula fan fiction. Okay, so this story is, I was, 23, and between undergrad and grad, I had an existential crisis about what I was going to do with my life.
That's so real.
It was I'd written a bunch of books in undergrad, but they weren't successful. They were deeply not successful.
Okay.
So I felt that wasn't a career path that I could have, but I couldn't let go of it. And then I was a STEM girly, so I was in this hard science path. And then I kept sort of looking at the arts, oh, but what if? So I panicked. I was going to go to med school. I deferred and I moved to London for like 9 months. And while I was living there, I wound up moving into this like townhouse full of girls. And I think like 2 of them were actresses. One was a law student. 3 were models. There was like a model agency that rented out a floor. And we all lived in this like Regency townhouse in London together. And it was like a dream. It was so charming. It was so cute. And I was contracted to be writing like a middle grade fantasy series under a pen name. So I was writing. And I felt like this was like the end of my life being fun. And the countdown was on until I like went back to the States and started studying medicine and got to become like the normal, boring, like, but successful person that like I aspired to be. I don't know. So one weekend, really toward the end of this, I decided to take like a last minute trip. There were really cheap airfare from London on like EasyJet and Ryanair and places like this. And you can get like a flight for like $50. And go somewhere. So I was looking and I booked myself a flight. I went to Budapest and I went for like 3 days. I had just a carry-on bag. And while I was there, I went to like the opera house in Budapest. It's very like beautiful and ornate. And I got myself like one single ticket in like an opera box. And I was sitting there, I was by myself, and there were these 2 like guys around my age behind me. And we struck up a conversation at intermission, and they were like 2 friends. They were from Denmark, and they were just traveling around. And I was by myself. So we decided the next day we were going to get together and we were going to rent a car and drive out to see some like UNESCO World Heritage sites, some old castles. And I was like, oh, wow, I'm on this grand adventure. So I went with them. They were super nice. And then they invited me. They said, hey, we're going to go to Transylvania and we're going to go to Dracula's castle. Do you want to come? And I was like, let me see if I can change my flight. Like, no, my housemates didn't know where I was. I was like, I'm just going for the weekend. I'll be back. And a lot of us did this all the time. And I tried. You're like already dying.
Well, I'm like, on the one hand, I'm like, oh my God, you're actually living in a book already. Like you were in this like beautiful house with like a fun cast of characters. And then you've met these like fun strangers and you're going on a trip with them. But then I'm also like, you were almost murdered.
Yes, this is why I was like, this is the perfect story.
Okay,
so I tried to book a flight like on my phone, you know, because I didn't have my laptop with me. It was like my bank card and the apps, and like it was, you know, 2009. Like the internet was not letting me book this. So I couldn't book the flight to Transylvania. So I wound up not going with these guys. I did meet up with them much later in Denmark, and like we hung out and they were super lovely.
Aww.
But on the flight back to London, I wound up meeting this boy. So this is where the story can go into a different story, potentially. And he was like a med student in the UK, and we wound up like hitting it off. We went back to London together, and then it was very sad. It turned out he was leaving like 3 days later for, I think, 6 weeks backpacking around Thailand. And when he came back, I was already going to be back in the States starting, and med students in different countries, like we would never meet up again. We could never make it work. So it was like this very like doomed but charming romance.
Yeah.
But, you know, so I'm like, well, like that's one story, but I'm kind of interested in what would have happened if, you know, I, or a fictional young woman traveling around Europe alone, had managed to book that flight to Transylvania with these random guys she met in the opera and knew for 48 hours and just went to Dracula's castle with them. I feel like that could be our way into like weird, like surreal vampire story. Can we do that?
I would love to do that. I also randomly already have some ideas for like a Scooby-Doo type mystery within the Transylvania castle.
Oh, okay.
Because I suppose we don't know that they're... Well, are they the vampires? Or are you going to happen upon vampires? How are we going to go about that? And I think that that's going to be part of the mystery that we have to solve.
Okay. So I have no plan for this. I just thought of it. And because if I think it out too far, I'll make something. And I don't want to make something.
Right. We're making something now.
Like, create. Yes. So... let's start like a young girl, like 23, 24, whatever, gap year before grad school, existential crisis. She's living in Europe. She takes a trip. Maybe her friend was supposed to go with her. doesn't go. She winds up going alone. Or maybe she's trying to be really brave and she winds up going by herself.
Yeah.
She meets these guys. It's not romantic at all.
Mm-hmm.
It's just friendly. And they suggest she keeps traveling around with them. And she thinks, why not?
I think that she should have been going with a friend and they can't come, because then she's like longing for companionship. Like she wanted to be with people during this, so it makes it
she's lonely.
More probable that she would then join these strangers. Whereas I think that if you're like on your own and you planned to go on your own, you're feeling a little more independent and you're like, oh, thank you, strangers.
Yes, maybe it's not going well for her. Like her friend was the one who was usually in charge of everything, and she's a little nervous. She doesn't speak the language. She doesn't really know what's going on, like using the subway system. Like this was all a big adventure, and she felt confident doing it with her best friend, but her best friend couldn't come, so she's by herself. She sees these two guys. They're sitting literally with her in this opera box with her friends, empty seats. Maybe they think she's been dumped, right? Because there's the empty chair. They're talking. They don't realize she speaks English too, or whatever, and they strike up a conversation. They go on like a charming day, and maybe the thing is, if the guys are going to be vampires, like there's got to be like some weird suggestion of it, right?
Right. Like, yes, they did spend a date. Well, not even a day. They spent a night together because of their vampires.
Yes, they say, do you want to meet up tomorrow night?
Right. So she's on her own for that day, and maybe even feeling like a lot of that pressure of like, I am so alone. I don't know what I want to do. Like, do I just sit in the hotel room by myself? No, I need to venture out. I'm like at this like I'm at this new place. I'm here to explore. And she's like going, but like she keeps maybe turning to tell someone and no one's there, or like going to pull out her phone, but remembering that her friend is busy with whatever emergency, and just like feeling very alone.
Yeah, she feels alone. She's like trying to take a selfie in front of some monument. Like goes to ask somebody to like maybe take her photo, and like, it's not working. She's not having a great time. She's like too embarrassed to go sit in a restaurant by herself. Like she's sitting on a park bench eating some kind of like vending machine, snacks, and is like, screw it, I am going to meet with these guys. They can't be serial killers, right? I met them at the opera. That's where nice people go.
Yeah, maybe even she wasn't going to meet up with them when they're like, oh, you should meet us up tomorrow night, and she's like, yeah, sure, and then she wasn't gonna go, but now she's like feeling so alone that she's like, okay, I'm gonna go.
Yeah, maybe that, or like her best friend who stayed home sick is like really on some like romantic couples weekend with the boyfriend, and she's like,
betrayal.
Betrayal. It's like, well, screw this. I'm not letting, I'm not going to sit here and feel sorry for myself. If she's going to do that, I'm going to come home with like a hot hookup story with this guy I met at the opera.
Okay. Got it.
Something like this.
Yeah.
So, but the question is, are they vampires, or are they just like guys maybe who need to bring a girl to the vampire?
So, well, that kind of pulls into, is it a vampire when you go to Transylvania together? Is it a vampire or is it a cult? And so they're bringing they have to bring this woman either as like a cult sacrifice or as a vampire sacrifice of like.
Oh, I love that. Okay, yes.
So that's going to be part of like, we have to figure out what's going on.
Yes. They're all into like esoterica. They're talking about it. Like the castle that they go to visit when they're, or whatever, the bar they go to meet up at is like in some underground vault that, has some spooky history of like cult ritualistic murders, and, all the drinks, like look like blood or whatever.
Yeah, and they'll know a lot about it. They'll be talking
they know
about
a lot
the
about
history.
It. And she thinks it's cool because it's like,
it's fun facts, but it's not
fun fact. Yeah, it's just fun facts, right? Like, yeah, this is like a girl who like goes all out on her Halloween costume. She thinks this is fun facts. And won't it be so fun? She's gonna go to a castle with these cute boys from the opera. She, books her like $20 flight or a train ticket, maybe. They're going on an overnight train.
Yeah. No, I like the overnight train. I think maybe like they don't want to let her out of their sight. She can't escape.
Right. She's trapped on the train, and also, they're in their own compartments. She's like, this is so safe. Like, like they're really making me feel safe as a woman, but really like, they're like doing some like ritualistic cult thing.
Oh no, I'm so worried about her.
I'm so worried about her too. So they wind, they get there. It all feels normal. They have a lot of friends who my friends, it turns out, are here too. There's some kind of like, festival in town, right? There's some like, I don't know, themed festival, like back in time kind of thing.
It's got to be a vampire festival. We're in Transylvania. Oh, yeah. It's got to be
Transylvania. It's the vampire festival. She's not able to find a hotel room. Everything is booked out.
What's that festival in Twilight, in New Moon, that she like goes to get him when he's like gonna reveal himself, but there's like a festival happening, so she can't drive up to the space?
Oh God, I don't remember, but I do know a little bit what you're talking about.
Similar Vibes Festival.
Yes, there's like a huge like festival, and there's, like people are like selling like old-timey foods and old-timey outfits in like the market square.
Ooh, okay. So then I think that our guys and maybe their friends also need to get like cloaks and stuff, but it's old-timey garb. Definitely
right,
not
it's old-timey garb. They think it's funny. They give her a cloak. And it's like weird. It smells weird. And she's like, no, like this is just, they're just being nice. Like they're weird European guys.
Yeah.
Like this is quirky. They're taking all these great photos. And I think she can't get a hotel room. And the guys are like, well, my friends like rented out like a place. Like they rented out like an old gatehouse. Okay. Maybe you can stay with them. And, maybe there's a girl who's part of this group. She seems like, okay.
Yeah.
She's okay. I'm gonna stay with them. She gets up to like the little cottage they've rented, and it is like creepy, decrepit murder castle. And it's like the gate cottage, and it's weird. Like everything is weird. There's like a locked door kind of thing. The thing I love about people who are in horror stories is they don't realize until too late that they're in a horror story. Right. So do you think like this is when she realizes, or
I think that she is suspicious right now, but I think that and it would be kind of fun to play into the Transylvania-ness of it all. I think that it is a cult, and we will learn that at the end, but I think that right now, I think they should be dropping hints and stuff that kind of leads it into vampires. And so in her mind, in our main character's mind, she's starting to be like, hey, is this not a joke? Are they vampires?
Yes.
And so she's starting to maybe try to catch them in a lie on being vampires. Like maybe she's gonna try to like find a cross or some holy water or something.
I cooked some garlic toast, I made everybody like appetizers. It's aperitivo hour. Right.
So she's trying to uncover that they are vampires, and they are just trying to keep her around for their cult ritual. Either to induct her into or to use as a sacrifice for, haven't decided yet.
Okay. And like this, we need a hero character. Okay. We need a hero character. It's either the guy who's running this like cottage thing for his family, or it's like, the newest member of the cult.
Like a legacy member who was inducted because of who their family is and is like, actually, this is weird, guys.
Yeah. He's like the new guy, and he's tasked with sort of like watching her or like making her feel safe. So it's either that, or it's like, just a nice guy who I actually might go with the like it's the nice guy who's running the house that they're staying in. So she calls him about like bad water pressure. She runs into him. He's like shirtless on the property chopping wood, kind of a thing. And like this is the dream, right? He maybe takes her out for like a wine bar or something in the town, and she's like fully falling for it. And then like the cult shows up and is mad about this. And then maybe the guy doesn't turn up again the next day.
Ooh.
And she's starting to think like, ooh, uh-oh.
Okay.
So, like we need like a sort of a compatriot for her to like fight her way out of this, right? Or who can.
I'm with you. I also think that we should be leaving some little crumbs for her friend who like did betray her and go on the romantic weekend, which was rude of her, but also like is her friend. And so it's like maybe she's like sending updates, or maybe she's like, oh, I met these guys, or just like, by the way, I'm going over here now. Just like she was sending updates and now she's not. And I think that other friend needs to be worried about that, and maybe like sending some like, hey, can you just like confirm you're alive texts? And she's doing that, but it's getting weird kind of things.
I think her phone is not working.
Ooh, okay.
I think in this village, it's not working. And like, there's some like, you know, the weird European phone plan, like she can't connect to the satellites there. It's not going to work for her.
Right.
So she's just trying to get Wi-Fi and tell her friend she's safe.
Yeah, I was going to say that
is.
maybe she just is using Wi-Fi. Like she didn't get the international plan. She just uses
yeah,
Wi-Fi
yeah.
and there's not any in the town.
The guy sets it up for her, the like Airbnb dude. Like,
oh, yeah, that's why they met. Okay.
That's how they met. Yeah. And then, of course, the cult gets pissed that he's like given her a way to contact the outside world.
Good.
So, yeah. So we've got this like cute meet cute going on with her, but also this cult that's trying to convince her that they're vampires. Do you think a real vampire needs to come in and start picking off members of this cult?
Ooh.
Is the guy a real vampire? Like the nice guy?
Oh, I like that. I think that's fun. And I think that that's a fun twist of that, like this cult that acts like vampires, but actually there are real vampires.
Right. And it's just this like nice guy who sets up the Wi-Fi and chops wood shirtless and like takes her out to a wine bar.
Right. And he just lives in Transylvania because he's a vampire.
Yeah, he just, of course, it's his family's estate and he's running the Airbnb.
Yes.
Mind blown. Yeah. So she like runs to him, you've got to help me. And like, dude's the vampire.
Yeah. Oh my God.
I think she comes home to her friend and she's like a new baby vampire at this point. And her friend is like, I hope you had a great time on your trip. Let's go out and like grab drinks. And she's out at the bar with her friend and like all she can think about is like, I'm so thirsty.
Oh, that's a fun ending for sure. Like we don't know, and then it's just like in italics, like the I'm so thirsty, and then like Finn. I think that that's a good ending for sure.
I think it's fun, right? It's such a misdirection because the whole book you're thinking, oh, it's going to be vampires, and then you're like, it's not vampires, and then you're like, damn it, it was.
Oh my God, I
like
love
that
it.
Question of any vampire story, right, is are they going to turn? And then the question of any horror is, are they going to get away or are they going to be made a monster as well? Like, does the horror continue with them or do they escape it? Yeah. So it does both.
I like that. I think we need, I need to know more about the escape scene. I need to know more about how she gets away from the cult. Because, like, yes, he helps her, but, like, how? Does he just kill everybody? Or is he, like, picking off certain people who are guarding her and she's able to escape? Like, does she take ownership over escaping and he assists her? Or does he save her from this cult?
I think she has a plan to escape and it goes wrong, right? Because you need to complicate it. She's almost out. She's got her bags packed. She's at the gate and the cult gets her. They're waiting. They take her down to some room. They've got the candles. They're like, it's
ceremony time. Okay.
It's ceremony time. It's creepy. There's like chalk diagrams drawn out and she's like, what is this? And then she's like, wait a minute, you're not vampire? Then, of course, she manages once they catch her at the gate to send, some Wi-Fi message to the guy, help me, right? And turn on a phone track or something. So, of course, they're like, no, like, come on, like, this is all in good fun. Like, we're gonna, they're kind of crazy, but they think it's going to be normal. They're like, we're just going to like, drink each other's blood and like, give each other
casual.
like, cult tattoos. It's casual. Like it's a big where we all wear fake fangs.
Oh my God.
And she's like, no, oh my God. This is so much worse than vampires. You are sane human beings.
This is so much worse than vampires.
It's so much worse than vampires. I wish I never went to that opera. And the guy shows up. And she's like, dude, like everyone here is insane. And then, he sees everyone's like fake fangs or whatever. And he's like, just out of curiosity, what's going on, guys?
Oh my God. I love that. I think that they should tell some story in the middle. We're bumping back over to the
we're
bouncing.
Right,
we're bouncing. So I think that near the beginning, because of our guys who had the fun facts, I think that they should tell the story of the home that they're staying in at some point. And they're like telling her. And so she's knowing about the history of the house, which is, main guy's house once once he says
Right, his family's house. It was said there were like, there was a, some wife of like a baron, and he was upset that she had like, a daughter instead of a son, and he killed the baby, and then the baby, didn't die. Like some kind of like, the house is haunted, and that's how this legend came up in this town of like monsters.
I think that there should be some sort of zinger during the big fight where we're down in the basement or whatever with all the chalk drawings. I think that during that story, they needed to talk about the last name of that family. And then I think that the cult is kind of trying to like be that family. So they're like talking about that family again. I gotta pick like a name. All I can think of is like Romanoff, which is not right. That's a
sure, but like it's some sort of like
so then I think
mysterious like culty last name. Maybe it's like the name of some old famous like alchemer or whatever. And
right.
Yeah, and they're basically RPGing out this family.
Right. So then I think that he needs to say some sort of zingy one-liner being like, this is what that last name looks like.
Yeah.
And then he can go out.
Yes, the fangs come. She's so betrayed that she's like not even terrified that he's a vampire.
She's like, oh, of course. Now there are actual vampires. Of course.
Yeah, she's like, the swoony guy who was saving me? No. There's nothing sacred.
No, I love that.
Like, you can't be an evil vampire. You set up the Wi-Fi.
Vampires don't know how to use a Wi-Fi.
Of course not, right? Like, oh my God, and maybe he like has dorky clothes.
Yeah, he's a very What We Do in the Shadows vampire.
Yes, he's a very What We Do in the Shadows vampire. Like he's just bumbling and a little bit lovable, even though he's spooky. But like, yeah, that's the story. I think
love that.
Yes,
and I like that in the end she is also a vampire, or it's assumed based off of like how thirsty she is. Do we want to talk at all about like how she is turned, or do we want that to just kind of be up to the audience?
I mean, I'd never miss an opportunity to put in like a really steamy scene that then
I was wondering if we feel
awry.
I was wondering if we feel like it's just that like any fluids can turn you, or if it has to be like fang fluids.
Oh, interesting.
Because then I think that like even a kiss could turn someone. If it's any fluid, a kiss could turn someone.
Oh, I mean, I would love it to be like an exchange of fluids. Like, he started some version of a ritual and then she chooses to finish it with him.
Ooh.
It's like he bit her and like drank her blood, but it isn't until she like drinks his.
Okay.
Something. And I'm like, oh God, I can't make up an entire vampire lore because it's going to get in my head. But
I'm doing vampire lore in my head. I'm like, okay, so like they cut her for the ritual. And so like that
right,
somehow
and
gets on him.
He sees her bleeding. Yeah, he sees her bleeding. And, yeah, and she's like, you saved me. Oh my God. And he's like, run, get out of here. And she's like, not until you tell me, like, not until you answer my questions. And he's like, you really don't want to go. No, everyone in town is part of this weird festival cult. And you seem normal and you're not normal. And no, thank you. Yep. And then he just.
Incredible. I love this story.
Definitely that's what happens. And then it's like, 6 days later, right? It's like, she's just back in London with her friend.
And she's so thirsty. Yes.
And they're at a bar and she's like, this line, like, I want to kill everyone here. I like, it's so crowded. Everyone's so loud. The bartender isn't paying attention to me. And I'm so thirsty.
Oh, that's such a good ending. I love that.
Thank you.
Oh, fantastic.
So this is based on the story of I went to the opera in Budapest. I love that.
No,
like
I love
that
it.
Turned into like a weird vampire cult murdery like. That's cool.
A great fun time. I love it so much. And then so we have your 11 book that you've published. Do you have any coming up soon?
Yes, I definitely have books coming up. I cannot talk about them, but like when I can, or maybe even before I'm actually allowed to, like I might just start like seeding that on my social media because I'm so shocked and excited. I had 3 projects on submission at the same time, and I was like wondering what order they would sell in, if at all. And literally, it was like the third one out of 3, like the last one to go is going to be like the first one to get picked up, which is not what I was expecting.
And what socials can people find you on to look for these Easter eggs?
These Easter eggs are on my Instagram, it's just at Robyn Schneider, and then the clock app, should it continue to exist.
Oh, who knows?
Oh, who knows? And that's it. Like, I don't have anything else.
Let's pop back over to The Other Merlin really quick.
Sure.
So The Other Merlin was your first trilogy, correct?
Yes.
So, but it did a weird thing in the middle where this book is the only one with this cover. And then all of the others have different covers. And I like the illustrated covers, but I already owned this one. So I could...
Oh my God, I need to send you the jacket wrap so that you can change your hardcover into making it like... Yeah, we did a promotion.
Wait, I love that you do a
changed
jacket
it.
wrap. That's so fun.
Yeah, after they changed it, on me begging and all of TikTok saying, "Oh my God, this is uggo."
I genuinely love this.
So it's polarizing. I feel like it's a Marmite cover, which is a phrase I learned, which I love, which means like people either love it or hate it. There's no in between.
This is such a like 2012 YA fantasy cover, and that's like where I love to be.
2021,
no, I know, but I love 2012.
I do too, but like I don't think anyone knew what to do with the cover, and then they just did that, and I was like, "Are you sure?" They're like, "Yes." And then the internet was like, "What is happening?" And they're like, "New cover." And I love this cover, so they didn't do it on the hardbacks, but for all of the books 2 and 3, I had them do a promotion where you got the jacket wrap to put on your hardcover of the first so they would match.
That makes sense.
As like a pre-order incentive, which I thought, like, most pre-order incentives, I'm not interested, but I was like, that one felt like a great reason to pre-order.
Yeah, I do love a pre-order that has art. I love a little art card of the characters. So, I mean, that is, the cover is art.
I like art card, but only if I already know the series. The thing is, like, for me, I don't get incentivized if I haven't read the book. I don't know if I like it yet, and I certainly don't know who the characters are.
That's fair.
So maybe that's just me, like, as like an elder millennial being like skeptical that I want to join a fandom before there is a fandom. But yeah,
I just love art. I love art cards. I just got book 2 of the Biotech Billionaire series, and it came with not only an art card for book 2, but also an art card for book 1. And since I was already read book 1, I get to like see the characters, and I was like, "Oh, that's cute."
But that's also like you're like the series,
right? It's already
you're
book
already
2.
invested.
Yeah, those are great though.
So yeah, they changed the covers on me. I was thrilled. I like the new cover design. I think it's better for the market. But
I'm a big fan of an illustrated cover, but I do occasionally like a real person cover. I think that when it's something like this, it's totally fine. I don't love a real person bodice ripper cover.
Oh no,
I'm like, oh, I don't
either.
I don't want to look at him.
I feel like everything is better in my imagination, even if I'm like imagining like just disembodied talking, because I can't picture faces, but I do know when I'm like, nope, not that. And like some movie castings have like, I'm like, I cannot, that's not how that is. And I feel like that's what like photorealistic covers do to me sometimes.
I do also think that an illustrated cover allows you to get like so specific about the characters in a way that the photorealistic covers do not. There's a like historical romance that I read and loved, but the cover is like a girl and she looks like me, honestly. And I was like, I love when she looks like me. So she's just like a curly-haired, red-haired girl, and she doesn't have freckles or glasses, which is like a very important part in the book where they talk about like how self-conscious she is of those two things. And he talks a lot about like, no, I love those things about you. But then on the cover,
but she's not on the cover,
right? So I'm like, that's not what she looks like.
Honestly, like the world of cover design, it's like so internal and it's so set back from the creative team that's making the book that it's really shocking to me how like good covers happen at all. You know, because they're coming out of the exact same assembly line as the bad covers. It's just like, it's luck of the draw.
Yeah. That's so true. Changing topics here. What has been your favorite book recently? What's been your favorite book cover recently, honestly?
Oh, my favorite book cover recently. You know what? I feel like the cover for Our Infinite Fates by Laura Steven is great. It's a YA cover and it's like very crossover. It's it's really like sophisticated. It makes you want to read the book. And it's not, I think a lot of recent YA covers to me have felt like almost fan art with a title slapped over it. And this one was really good. It was like really abstract. I thought it was beautiful.
I've seen a lot of good YA covers coming out recently as well.
I've seen a lot. That and like The Rose Bargain has a beautiful cover.
That one.
And then I think they just revealed like the cover for Catabasis, which looks good also. It's very like chic.
And what has been your favorite book that you've read recently?
Can I cheat with like an ARC of
Totally.
something that isn't out yet?
Yeah. Okay.
Because I was like, it's just my one answer, which is Bury Our Bones and The Midnight Soil, V.E. Schwab's like new one.
I've heard
Which is
great
vampires.
things. I've heard great things. Oh, is it vampires?
It's vampires, but it's like, it's so wonderfully vampire. It's literary like horror, which I have not read recently and didn't know I was interested in, but it's so good.
And what are you reading
like
right
it's
now?
got sort of like academia vibes, and it, you know, goes through time, and it's good. It's very good.
I'll have to pick it up. I haven't read it yet, of course, because it's not out yet. But I have the people who've had the arcs have been like, it's really good.
It's really good.
And then what are you reading right now?
What am I? I'm reading Death of the Author by Nnedi Okorafor. Is that, I hope I'm pronouncing her name correctly. She wrote Akata Witch, which is like my favorite middle grade like Harry Potter alternative series ever. Probably one of my top 10 series. So I'm reading that. And then what else am I reading? I'm like maybe 2 chapters in, and it is very good. And I just finished Powerless by Lauren Roberts, which was fun. It was very like throwback to like the Hunger Games era.
Yeah.
I mean, in terms like, I don't know, my reading recently has been so scattered because of what I've been writing, where I'm either like too superstitious to pick up something similar,
Valid,
or like I'm picking up something to like see how they did it. Oh, you know what I read that was very, very good recently was Funny Story by Emily Henry.
Good one. Good one. Yes.
I mean, it's about a librarian, so I feel like it's your
I seek out all books that are about librarians, and then I'm like, oh, look, it's me.
That's how I feel whenever I read a book about like a girl who's a novelist, like a successful novelist, or anyone in like the world of publishing. I'm like, oh, really? Tell me more.
Have you read yet? And it was so good. Beg, Borrow, or Steal?
No.
You gotta.
Okay, I'm writing this down. This is going on my list.
So good. I literally finished it the other day. It's Sarah Adams, and fantastic. And they're both writers. They're also both second grade teachers, but they're both writers.
Oh my god. Okay, I'm gonna love this. I am definitely going to love this.
It's so good. Oh my god. I'm literally thinking about it now, and I'm like, oh my god, I gotta reread it. I just finished it. I gotta reread it again. It was so good.
Do you do that? Do you reread books that you've read recently where you can still remember them? Or do you like save them until they've like exited your brain?
I don't typically reread like right away. They don't exit my brain. That doesn't happen. There's so many books in my brain. But I will reread and then like notice new things that I didn't notice the first time. But I like what happens, and a lot of the dialogue stays in my brain. And then I'm just like revisiting my friend, the dialogue.
Your friend, the dialogue?
My friend, the dialogue.
Aww.
I'm like, oh yeah, that was a fun thing. Like there's a part in, where do I even have it? I have Poison Studies somewhere on this shelf. I got the new cover because this is my favorite YA series of all time. And it's got a new cover. Very exciting. I have the original up here somewhere. There's a part where she does a training montage. And that part just like always sticks in my brain. And I'll go back and reread and be like, the training montage.
You know what? Like, I do that too, but I feel like I reread specifically as a writer, not like as a reader to enjoy it, but like to sort of like, it's like taking apart a microwave, you know?
You gotta see how it works.
Yes, I'm trying to see how it works. So like it feels very much like it's not reading in the sense of like what reading is meant to be for enjoyment. It's more like teaching myself.
That's fair though. You gotta see what's out there so that you can better your own craft.
Yeah, I mean it's like, you know, if I'm writing like, I don't know, a steamy scene in a book, I think back to like what were my most enjoyable books that had steamy scenes, and then I'll read through them, and then I'm like thinking, oh, what point of view were they in? If they're like multi-POV books, like what was so great about them? Like, you know, was there humor? And then I really, you know, It's like a very boring but like maybe like effective way to read as a writer. But anything that I'm rereading, it's usually not for pleasure as a reread, except A Discovery of Witches, because I could just reread that like 15 times. I don't know why. It's just like one of those like it hits every pleasure spot in my brain book.
If you want a book that has like a kind of funny, steamy scene, there's
Sure.
Cara Bastone's Promise Me Sunshine, which that
Okay.
it's not a like it's not a book you go into for like, oh, it's gonna have a steamy scene. It's like a deeply sad, grief-stricken book, but it's very funny as well. And
You know, I feel like she did a funny scene. She wrote Ready or Not,
yes,
right? Okay, yes, the scene where the main girl was like super pregnant and she was like, I could not see my pubes, so enjoy whatever they look like. I just felt like that was just such a hilarious, real like detail. I was like, good for you. That's hilarious. Like, please, like more of this.
yeah. In the same sense, in Promise Me Sunshine, there's like some funny dialogue when they're like about to or trying to have sex, and she's just like kind of in her head a little bit, but just like saying weird stuff. And he's like, do you want to take a break? Are we okay?
You know what? I actually adore when characters get self-conscious and fight that with humor. And I feel like in scenes, to me, like that is the best. Like when I go into things and they're too super serious or they're like 30 pages long, I'm like, I am tired. I don't know about these guys, but
Have you, I know it just came out, but maybe you got an early copy. Have you read Deep End yet?
no, I haven't. It's on my like must read. So I
You have
am
to.
very
It's
busy
so
these
good.
days, but okay, it's on my must read list. Like I feel like probably last year Bride was one of my favorite reads ever.
Me too.
So yeah, I'm like big fan. I have a lot of
It's somewhere on my shelf.
like my TBR right now is like 3 different genres. It's all like I don't know, contemporary romance, then it's like YA fantasy, and then it's sort of like adult, sort of like literary fantastical. And like that's what's going on.
Hey, that sounds like a great time.
It is. It's like you've got to be in the mood for like one.
Right. I think that I have a lot of YA fantasy and regular, and then I have contemporary romance, and then I have adult fantasy, and then I have thrillers. And those are my genres. I don't do a lot of horror. I've read a few that I've really enjoyed, but I don't do a lot of horror. I don't do a lot of middle grade. I don't do a lot of historical. I'll do some historical romance sometimes, but I typically
Oh, I've gotten into them recently. I mean, it wasn't now. It was like in the haze when I had like a newborn baby and was not like sleeping and, you know, had to sit there like waiting for her to fall asleep. And it was like, what am I going to read? And it was like, you know, Bridgerton number 25. It was like that.
Yeah, how has the baby been? How have you been like I mean it's like a major life change. Like things do you find that like you have more time to write because you have to be home with her all the time, or like less time to write because you have to be with her and she needs to do things?
It's like my answer is so not normal to this. I've never been so productive in my life. Like, to be fair, like we have a nanny for her.
Mhm.
Like I am a full-time writer. Like it is a job. It's not a
Of
hobby.
course.
It's not like something I do like during naps. And for some people it is. But no, it's like I have 5 or 6 hours a day where we have like childcare for her. And those are my writing hours. And usually if I had like the full day, oh my God, the amount of like online shopping I would do where I never actually checked out my cart, you know?
That's so
like
me.
just total waste of time online shopping, like scrolling through somebody on like Instagram, like I'm just gonna watch all their reels and not follow them. You know, like come on. Like honestly, it was terrible.
At least throw them a follow.
Oh, I know, but then I'm like, but I've already seen all the content that I wanted, and it turned out that one reel wasn't indicative of the rest of their stuff. You know, it just, oh my God, truly, like I was a champion time waster. Like I made some like 4-hour brownie recipe once out of a cookbook that needed like malt powder. Just no. So having like 5 or 6 hours where like I know how much each minute costs.
Mhm.
It's like that coffee shop mentality,
Mhm.
but for an extended period of time, which is I'm paying to be here. So I better not be like adding 8 bathing suits to my like Revolve cart and then forgetting it exists. So I've been like crazy productive. I've been exhausted, but yeah, I've been getting so much done. And I had like a literary agent many, many years ago who was a mom who told me that that would be the case. I was very skeptical. I didn't think it was real. It's real. Like, and the amount of books I've read too, my God, it's like when I'm waiting for her to go to sleep and I've just got the monitor up, so many. Like, I really thought I was gonna like lose my personality, lose myself, have no time to do anything that mattered to me. And I'm like, I'm being prolific? Weird.
It's awesome though. I'm glad that you are able to do everything that you want to do.
Like, I mean, obviously, like showers are like the most stressful thing to like fit into my schedule. I'm like, how does this work? You know, and then it's like, oh no, I have to go buy milk. Oh, gotta get the baby strapped into a seat. But in general, like most things that I thought would be hard are not the things that are hard.
Yeah. Well, that's great. I'm so glad.
Yeah. I was scared. I don't know why. I built it up so much in my mind.
That's going to be
But, like,
me.
I always do this with things. I always like think like, oh, this is like the countdown until like the end of everything. And it never is. But like my brain is so doom and gloom
The
like
end
that.
of everything.
Well, that was how it felt even like when I was abroad, when I was like, there's, 8 weeks until I moved back to the States.
That reminds me,
know,
I wanted to tell you this earlier when you were saying that you were having that midlife crisis between graduating undergrad and starting grad school. I want you to know that you're not alone in that, and that I also had a quarter or mid or whatever life crisis whenever I was graduating and like applying to grad schools. And I fully, for 8 months, had to be on steroids to stop the full body hives that I was broken out in for the entire time of that like transition period between undergrad and grad school.
it's because it feels so real.
Mhm.
Like picking a college is just picking like an experience for the next however many years. But like you can still change your major, you can study abroad, you can transfer, whatever. But picking like a career degree feels like committing.
Yeah.
Like in a scary way to an adulthood when you're still not there yet. And you don't get to try it on first. You just get to choose out of a list. And oh my God, it really is so scary. Like, I mean, I have like, a whole story, and I've done it on like podcasts where I talk about my life, where, I mean, I dropped out of studying medicine twice. I like mid-career, like studying, applied to film producer school and an MFA. And like I dropped out. I moved to Brooklyn for a year, which was when I started writing the beginning of everything. It was like in the sandwich of between studying medicines. Like it is really, really hard if you're a person who finds like joy in following like research threads and new and exciting things and likes to like bop around, to just commit. Like it's so scary. I feel like someone should write a book about that. Now I'm like, maybe
it's you.
It's gonna have vampires in it.
Yeah, and a cult. I think that what was the scariest thing for me was that like no matter what, because there wasn't a PhD program at the school that I was going to. So no matter what, if I was going to PhD, I was going to have to move like probably states and be like away from, it's one thing to go from like high school to college and then everybody around you is like forced to be your friend because you're all like new and scared and afraid. And then to go from that to like a grad school experience where there's like 5 other people and they don't have to like you.
That was my experience. Oh my God, my first year, I had no friends. It was such a it just felt like such a small program. And like I was doing like my like academic work. First, I was getting an MBE in addition. So it's like a bioethics degree. And most of the people in the classes were much older than me. There were only 5 or 6 people my age, and we had like nothing in common. I had like no friends that year. I mean, that was when I wrote the rest of the beginning of everything. I just would go to class. I would go to a 4-hour lecture on like end of life care. And then I would just go home and like sit in my apartment. And I was like, can I write about like what high school kids or something? Yeah, it's rough. Especially like, did you go to college near where you grew up, or did you like move far away?
I was within the same state. So I was like close enough that if I truly had the worst day of my life, I could spend 4 hours in the car and be home.
Okay, so you were still keeping that safety bubble.
Right. Yes. And I actually moved in with my best friend at the time. We both moved and lived in the same dorm together. And then we left that dorm into the same apartments. Like I had people no matter what.
Yeah.
And so then going from that, I was like, this is scary. And then I didn't go. And then I was like, actually, I'm going to get a master's instead so that I can stay at this school where I know everybody.
You know, sometimes it just makes sense to like keep being where you're at, and sometimes it makes sense to just like wipe the slate.
Yeah. I think that I learned a lot about myself in that, like, I'm not quite as adventurous as I thought that I was. I am for like a short period of time. Like, I would have gone, and I did go to Europe by myself, but I would not move to Europe by myself. I'll go.
I mean, that was very adventurous of me. I will say, like, that I just like up and moved to England knowing no one. That was a lot.
Yeah.
I you know, like, good on me.
Yeah.
Good on 23-year-old me. But I think sometimes I can be like too much of an adventurer, and I need to know when to stay put and like commit to things. You know, like when to nurture the friendships, when to like build a life somewhere, like when to hang art on the walls.
There's no art on these walls. I can't do it.
Oh, I have like the full gallery wall up now. Oh, wow, we've switched. We're like opposites of.
I think it's commitment for me. It's like scary.
It is, but it's also like self-commitment, I think, is the scariest,
Mhm.
is like saying I choose this identity rather than like, you know, just like I choose this apartment.
Right. No, I agree. Well, it was so great talking to you. I had a great time.
This was so lovely.
And so is there anything that you want to plug before we go out? Obviously, everybody should read all of your books because they're fantastic. Anything else that you want people to do?
I mean, please read The Other Merlin. I feel like you will enjoy it. If you enjoyed BBC Merlin or She's the Man or
Any other gender bender?
any other gender bender, or also I feel like My Lady Jane has a fandom now.
Oh,
so it's like,
how dare they delete that, like cancel it so fast. It was so good.
it was so charming. Why?
My Lady Jane was pitched to me as like Shrek, and I was like, it's like Shrek. And then I watched it and I was like, it is kind of like Shrek.
I don't see it, but then I see it. I'm like, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
No, it was so cute. I'm so sad that like that didn't
I know.
catch on like
It
crazy.
was so good. I genuinely loved it so much.
I feel like fantasies should have more humor. Most things should have more humor.
I agree.
Comedy should be more serious, but everything else should be funnier.
I couldn't agree more. So if you enjoyed listening to this episode, you can watch If It Was a Book episodes on YouTube if you're a visual person, or you can listen wherever you listen to podcasts. If you would like to submit your experience to be rewritten, email us at ifitwasabook@gmail.com, and your story may be selected by one of my guests to be rewritten. And you can follow us at If It Was a Book. I'm on Instagram, and I have a teeny tiny TikTok following, and YouTube Shorts. Ooh, that's it. Thanks for listening.